This is the Solid Signal podcast for the week of May 24th, 2021. Hey, welcome back. It's almost Memorial Day, which means that I will be recording probably 2 podcasts this week. I like to take the long weekend and make sure that you still have a podcast ready for you. So let's dig right in. We've got a few things to talk about today, and the biggest one is VHF-Low. Now, I haven't really talked about this for a while, and it seems like it's coming up a lot lately. I don't know if it's just coincidence or what have you, but the truth is that we're talking a lot about VHF-Low and what VHF-Low means and what it means to you if you have a TV antenna and want to get over-the-air reception. VHF-Low refers to channels 2 through 6 in the broadcast plan. You see, there's actually a couple of gaps that you're not really super aware of when you tune channels because, your TV is just set up to ignore them. There's a gap between 4 and 5, which we tend to not really talk about. There's a much bigger gap between 6 and 7, which is where FM radio lives. And there's an even bigger gap between 13 and 14. So realistically, there are 3 kinds of antennas. If you have an antenna that receives all 3 of these types of signals, we call that a VHF-UHF antenna. But most VHF-UHF antennas really only receive 2 of those kinds of signals, the 7 through 13 and the 14 through 36. Why? Because in order to efficiently pick up those 2 through 6 channels, you need a much, much bigger antenna. You see, the lower the broadcast frequency, the bigger the antenna that you need to receive it efficiently. I could go into the physics and talk about that stuff, but maybe that's better for another podcast. Let's just know that if you're trying to receive channel 2, you need an antenna, and do it really well, by the way. You need an antenna that's about 8 feet long, side to side. And if you're trying to receive channel 36, you need an antenna that's something on the order of about 6 inches long. So it's a lot easier to sell people these small antennas. A lot of people don't really want very large antennas. So it's a lot easier to sell them these small antennas. And if they don't need the VHF-Low frequencies, then it doesn't matter to them. How do you know if you need VHF-Low? Well, you can go to someplace like tvfool.com and find out what the broadcast frequencies are in your area. There are also a couple of resources that I'm working on for the Solid Signal blog, blog.solidsignal.com, that are going to show you what those VHF-Low channels are in your area. I checked it out recently as part of working on those resources, and there are about 60 channels across the country that broadcast on VHF-Low. Most of them are really, I'm not going to say that you don't want them, but they are special interest. They often are non-English speaker or special interest channels that don't appeal to a wide group. So even if you have one in your area, you may not really miss it if you choose to get a smaller antenna. There are a few places. Boston's WGBH, which is sort of one of the tent poles of the public broadcasting system over the last 50 years or so, is on VHF-Low. WQED Pittsburgh is also on VHF-Low, and it's one of those rare cases, WPVI in Philadelphia, which is your channel 6, ABC, is on VHF-Low. So anybody who's in Philadelphia really wants to get that off antenna is going to need a VHF-Low capable antenna. But that's one of the few markets that if you're trying to receive a network affiliate, you'll have to do that. Most of the time, it's not really an issue. So you have to ask yourself, do you need VHF-Low? Do you need an antenna that's really, really big, or do you want to settle for one that's powerful but much smaller? Because even though we talk about it in antenna circles and we like to believe it, size isn't really the most important thing when it comes to an antenna. It's how well it's matched to the frequencies that you want to receive. If really all you're trying to receive are UHF frequencies, then you might find out an antenna about the size of a pizza box will perform just as well for you as one that's 9 feet long. Take, for example, our Extreme Signal HD 8200XL, which is over 9 feet long. It's one of the largest antennas. I believe it is the largest antenna that you can buy for US over-the-air reception. And this thing is massive. I mean, just walking around it, because I put up one of them recently, just walking around it'll get you tired. And yet, the part of it that receives channels 14 through 36 is not very big at all. It's smaller, in fact, than our Extreme Signal HDB91X antenna. So if really all you need are those channels, then the rest of that antenna is wasted, and all the time you spend putting it up and the cost of shipping it to you just isn't necessary. That's okay though. Every market is different, every situation is different, and it's all about getting the right antenna for you. See, none of us are Marvel superheroes, so there's no warping the laws of physics here. You're either willing to ignore those channels that are on frequencies that are on VHF-Low or other frequencies you don't choose to get, or you're not. There really isn't kind of a middle ground where you can kind of or whatever. Now, smaller antennas, if you're close enough to the towers, are going to get those VHF frequencies, even VHF-Low, but you got to be pretty close to the towers in order to do it. As a matter of fact, as another antenna tech friend of mine famously once said, get close enough to the towers and you can get whatever you want with a coat hanger bent into a straight line. And that's not wrong. But you got to be pretty close to the towers in order for that to be true. It's all about getting the antenna that you need, my friends, and the way to do that is to shop at Solid Signal. If you know what you need, if you've gone to tvfool.com or one of these other places and you know what you need, shop solidsignal.com and you'll find a huge selection of all the popular brands. If you're not sure what you're looking for, call us at 877-312-4547 or use the Get Antenna Help link at solidsignal.com. Fill in everything that you know about your location, and a real honest antenna technician will respond with everything you need. It's all about making sure that your particular situation is taken into account. That's about it for the podcast this week, my friends. Come back next time, and in the meantime, please like, subscribe, leave a comment wherever you get this podcast. Makes me look good to my bosses, keeps the lights on here at the Solid Signal Podcast. I will talk to you more next week. As I said, next week is Memorial Day. Have a good one. The podcast will probably be out a little early as a result. That's just my gift to you. Have a great week.